Hi, my name is Rachel Dwyer, and I'm 33 years old. If you've ever been told that you were replaceable for choosing your family over your job, then please stick with me. This isn't just a story, it's a fight I didn't ask for, but one I was forced to win. And if you believe in second chances or just want to see someone take down a bully the smart way, hit the like button and subscribe. This one's for you. When I held my daughter for the first time, I cried harder than I ever had in my life. Not from pain, not from fear, from clarity. In that hospital room, with the IV still taped to my wrist and my husband snoring softly in the visitor's chair, I looked down at her tiny, perfect face, and something inside me settled. For the first time in years, I wasn't chasing the next milestone. I wasn't reviewing deliverables in my head or checking Slack at 2 a.m. I was simply Rachel, not Rachel Dwyer, Senior Project Manager, not Rachel from corporate, not Rachel with the Q4 rollout on her shoulders. Just me, and for 9 short, sleepless, magical weeks, I stayed that way. Diaper changes became my new deadlines. Late-night feedings replaced all-hands meetings. I wore spit-up instead of silk blouses. And somehow that felt okay. I won't lie, I missed my job. Not every part of it, of course. Not the passive-aggressive emails from upper management or the urgent client calls on Friday evenings, but the rhythm of it, the structure, the identity. Because here's the truth most people won't admit: motherhood is beautiful, but it's also lonely, and exhausting, and terrifying. And while everyone coos over the baby, nobody asks how you are. So yes, I looked forward to going back. I missed coffee breaks with Jenna and Arjun. I missed leading Monday stand-ups. I missed feeling competent, in control, like I knew what I was doing. Because with a newborn, you constantly question yourself. Am I feeding her enough? Is she too hot? Too cold? Why won't she stop crying? Work at least made sense. So I planned my return carefully. I emailed HR 2 weeks ahead to confirm my schedule. I arranged part-time childcare for the first month to ease the transition. I bought new work slacks, postpartum size, but still sharp, and even practiced putting on makeup again while my daughter napped. The night before I returned, I barely slept. Not because of the baby this time. She mercifully slept 6 hours straight, but because of nerves. I hadn't been away from the office this long in nearly a decade. What if they've replaced me? I joked to my husband. They haven't, he said, kissing my forehead. You're irreplaceable. I smiled, but a tiny, quiet doubt lingered. Still, I woke up early, got dressed, packed 2 extra bottles just in case, kissed my daughter's forehead, and left the house with my heart in my throat. I even stopped at that little bakery near the mall office and bought 24 assorted donuts, because that's what people do when they come back, right? Something sweet to say. I'm still part of the team. The building hadn't changed. Same glass doors, same overwatered fern by the Y elevator, same security guard, who gave me a sleepy thumbs up as I passed. But the moment I stepped out on the 3rd floor, something felt off. The usual buzz was missing. Phones rang, keyboards clacked, but no one looked up. I stood there holding my pink pastry box like an idiot, expecting someone, anyone, to greet me. Nothing. No. Welcome back, Rachel. No, we missed you. Not even a head nod. I cleared my throat. Morning, I said, smiling brightly. A few people glanced up. Jenna gave a small wave. Arjun offered a tight smile. No one moved. I started walking toward my old desk. It wasn't there. Well, it was, technically, but not mine. The nameplate read, Bryce. The photos of my family were gone. My ergonomically adjusted chair had been replaced with a stiff conference room seat. Confused, I turned in a slow circle, scanning the open floor for someone, anyone, to explain. That's when Andrew appeared. Andrew Miller, my boss, the man who once called me his secret weapon during crunch time. The guy who high-fived me in front of the VP when I salvaged the Lancaster account. The same Andrew who had emailed me a dry best wishes the day I went into labor. He was holding a coffee cup with Bummer One Boss printed on it, of course. "Rachel," he said, as if I'd just returned from a week in Cabo. "You're here." Yeah," I said, lifting the donut box. Back in action. He gave the box a glance but didn't take one. I waited for the usual awkward hug or a pat on the shoulder. Instead, he gestured vaguely toward the far end of the office. "Your desk is over there now. We had to shuffle things around a bit." I frowned. "I'm not by the devs anymore?" "Denise needed proximity to the product team," he said quickly. "Oh, and you'll be working with her now." "With?" "On her team," he clarified, sipping his coffee. "We reassigned some responsibilities while you were out. You'll be assisting on a few projects until you're fully ramped up again." I stared at him. "Andrew," I said slowly, "I was leading those projects before I left." "Right," he said, as if I'd reminded him to pick up dry cleaning. "But we couldn't exactly keep them on pause for 9 weeks. You understand?" Do I really? Because it didn't feel like a shuffle. It felt like a silent sentence, a punishment with no explanation. I smiled, not because I felt like smiling, but because I didn't know what else to do. "Of course," I said. "Just point me to my new desk." And just like that, the corner office woman became the floater with no title, no welcome, no dignity. The new desk was near the printer, not beside it, behind it. I could hear every churn of the paper feed, every screech of the toner drum, and every beep when someone forgot to choose duplex. It was like sitting in a mechanical wind tunnel. The chair was stiff. The monitor hadn't been adjusted for someone over 5 feet. The keyboard had sticky keys, and no one had bothered to clean out the last person's drawer. I found a cracked stress ball, a half-eaten granola bar, and a sticky note that said, "We need to talk, M." I don't know who M was, but I'm guessing that talk never happened. I placed my donut box down on the edge of the table. There was no room to call it a desk, and tried not to let the humiliation show on my face. At 9:17 a.m., my email finally logged in. My inbox was a disaster. Hundreds of threads, all threaded wrong. Project folders I'd created had been renamed. Shared drives had vanished. My name was missing from the Leadership Sync calendar invite. Every weekly meeting I used to lead, stand-ups, retros, client syncs, was gone from my calendar. I wasn't just out of the loop, I was out of the system. No one had even CC'd me. I scrolled back and found one thread, dated 2 weeks ago, where Andrew had forwarded a message. "Let's hold Rachel's projects with Denise for now. She'll assist as needed once she's back." Assist. That word burned into my brain. Before maternity leave, I had 3 product teams under me, a dozen direct reports, a 6-figure budget. I was running the biggest rollout of the fiscal year. Now, I was someone's assistant? At 9:23 a.m., Denise arrived. Denise Clark, 10 years younger than me. Sharp, polished, ambitious. I'd mentored her when she first joined, helped her through her first major presentation, walked her through the politics of working under Andrew. She walked past me, turned, and blinked. "Oh," she said. "Hey, Rachel, you're back." She sounded surprised, not pleased, not welcoming, just surprised. "Yep," I said, smiling tightly. "Just got in." "Right, cool. Let me get settled and we'll figure things out." She walked to my old desk, now her desk, and sat down like she'd been there forever. I waited. At 10:04 a.m., she messaged me on Slack. "Hey, want to join the 10:30 with product? Might be helpful. Helpful, as in optional, as in observer. At 10:30, I followed her into the conference room. There were no seats left, so I stood near the wall. She led the meeting, efficient, well-spoken, confident, and she used all my slides. I recognized every chart, every bullet point, even the structure of the roadmap. It was mine, but she never looked at me, not once. At 11 at night, I walked back to my desk. The printer beeped in protest. I didn't cry. I told myself I wouldn't cry. But when I opened my Slack again, I saw something that made my stomach turn, a group chat labeled Core PMs that I was no longer part of. I clicked into the sidebar, searched my name. Nothing. I had been removed. I wasn't on the main PM team channel anymore. I wasn't in the client escalations group. I wasn't in the Friday Fun Trivia chat I had started 2 years ago. Not even the Working Moms support group that used to post memes about pumping in supply closets. I messaged HR. Hi, just checking. Could you confirm my current title and team structure? They replied an hour later. Hi, Rachel. Thanks for reaching out. You're currently listed as Project Coordinator Temp under Denise Clark's team. Let us know if you have further questions. Project Coordinator Temp. I stared at the screen. So long my eyes burned. Not only had they taken my job, they had demoted me. Quietly, without a conversation. Without even telling me to my face. They had erased me. That afternoon, I confronted Andrew. He was in his office with the door ajar, scrolling on his phone. I knocked once and stepped in. Hey, I said. Can we talk for a second? He looked up, mildly annoyed. Sure, what's up? I sat down across from him. I just got off email with HR. They said my new title is Project Coordinator, Temp. He nodded. No apology, no surprise. That's not the role I left, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Well, he said, leaning back. Things shifted while you were out. Denise really stepped up. We had to be agile. You understand how fast this place moves. I felt my stomach clench. You mean while I was on maternity leave? He held up his hands. Look, Rachel, this isn't personal. It's business. We had deliverables. You were gone. Denise filled the gap. She took over my job. She earned the position, he said pointedly. And honestly, Rachel, I need you to be a team player here. This is your chance to rebuild. Prove you're still hungry. Prove I'm still hungry? Like I hadn't spent the last decade building this place? Like childbirth and nursing and healing somehow made me less. I stood up. Thanks for the clarity, he smiled. Glad we're on the same page. I walked out without saying another word. That night, I sat in my car in the parking lot and stared at the windshield. It was covered in dust and pollen. I hadn't washed it in weeks. I'd been too tired, too focused on survival. I watched the office lights flicker off one by one. They thought I was finished. They thought I'd take it quietly, but they had underestimated the wrong woman. When I got home that night, my daughter was already asleep. I kissed her forehead, brushed a soft curl off her cheek, and whispered, I'm sorry. Not because I left her for work, but because I had let them shrink me. I sat on the edge of my bed, shoes still on, staring at nothing for a long time. Then I opened my laptop. I didn't check Slack. I didn't look at my email. I opened my personal folder. Career, 2018 to now. Every deck, every project summary, every client report. I'd kept it all, labeled, time-stamped, organized, because I'd built this place from sweat and spreadsheet formulas. And I wasn't going to let them gaslight me into thinking I'd imagined it. I pulled up the product launch that got us the biggest client in 2021. My initials were on every slide. My notes on user behavior, my action plans, my test result breakdowns. Had proof, not feelings, proof. And I knew one thing for certain: Denise didn't create anything. She inherited it, polished what I'd already shaped. The next morning, I came in early. I wore all black, not for drama, but because I wanted to feel grounded, invisible, but solid, like armor. I didn't bring donuts. I brought my memory. I started taking notes. Not just about what was happening to me, but what they were doing wrong. Andrew had a habit of running meetings without documenting action items. That had always been a problem. Now, it was a weakness. Denise was leading a roadmap she didn't fully understand. I knew where the pitfalls were, because I'd fallen into them last quarter. Watching her skip past the metrics told me everything. She didn't know what was under the surface, and HR wasn't just complicit. They were lazy. Their email threads showed no performance concerns, no formal documentation of reassignment, just vague shifts in structure. They were counting on me not to push back. They wanted me small, quiet, embarrassed, but I wasn't. I was watching. At 3:17 p.m. that day, I scheduled a one-on-one with Denise. She looked surprised when the calendar invite popped up. "Want to grab 15 minutes?" I asked in person. "No pressure." She smiled tightly. "Sure, let's talk." We found a small phone room. She sat across from me with her laptop open, posture perfect. I sat back, no laptop, just eyes. "I just want to understand," I said, calmly. "You took over my teams, my roadmap, and now I'm listed as a temp on your team. Why didn't you tell me?" She blinked. "I assumed you knew. That I was demoted? That things had shifted?" "Look, Rachel, I didn't plan this. Andrew approached me during your leave, said the execs needed continuity. I stepped in. Did you ask if I'd be returning to my role?" She hesitated. "I asked what the plan was. He said they'd figure it out when you got back." "And you didn't think that was strange?" "I thought it wasn't my place." I let the silence hang for a moment. "Denise," I said carefully, "you and I both know how this company works. If someone doesn't speak up, they get swept aside. I helped you learn that." She looked down. "I know. I'm not here to accuse you, but I am here to remind you." "Of what?" "That I'm not gone, and I'm not quiet. I'm still here, and I still know exactly how everything works." She didn't reply. I stood up. "Thanks for the clarity." Before I left, I added, "You may want to back up your project folders, just in case." She didn't ask what I meant. Back at my desk, I began to build a document. I called it Case Role Displacement. I laid everything out: dates, Slack messages, HR replies, performance reviews from the past 24 months, all glowing, promotions earned, bonuses received. I copied my original org chart, added the date it was published, the same day I was called indispensable at the Q4 town hall. Then I added the current chart where my name was gone. Side by side. No commentary needed, but the moment that flipped a switch in me came 2 days later. It was Friday afternoon. Andrew strolled out of his office, Starbucks in hand, grinning like a man who thought the game was over. He passed by my desk behind the printer, and said, "Glad to see you settling back in, Rachel. Hopefully this new pace gives you some balance. Balance, like I was a hobby, like I had chosen a downgrade." I smiled. "Thanks, Andrew. I'm enjoying the fresh perspective." He nodded, proud of himself. That weekend, I reached out to one person who mattered: Travis Liang. Travis was our biggest enterprise client's operations lead. We'd worked closely on their platform transition last year, and we'd built trust, the kind that didn't vanish overnight. I emailed him from my personal account. Travis, off the record, can we talk Monday? Something has shifted here and I want to make sure you're covered, he replied within 10 minutes. Of course. Monday, 9 a.m., call me. That call changed everything, because Travis had noticed something was off. The last 2 syncs with Denise had felt light, he said, surface level. He'd assumed I was returning and just hadn't re-engaged yet. I didn't badmouth anyone. I didn't need to. I just asked, if you were given the option, would you rather I lead the transition final phase? He said, without hesitation. And that's when I knew I still had leverage. My value didn't live in that office. It lived in people's memories, in what I'd built, in trust. They had demoted my title, but they hadn't taken my power. Now I just had to take it back. Silently, strategically, one move at a time. I didn't storm the gates. I didn't file a formal complaint. I didn't slam any doors or raise my voice. Instead, I planted doubt. Quietly, precisely. Because I knew something they had all forgotten. You don't need a title to pull strings. You just need people who remember what you're worth. Monday morning, I arrived at 7:30, earlier than usual. No one noticed, except the junior analyst whose desk was near the elevator. Hey, she said softly. You're back early today. I smiled. Yeah, just catching up. I stopped by the kitchen, brewed a fresh pot of coffee, and waited. Andrew always rolled in at 8:10 sharp, like he was being filmed. Designer coat, crafted bedhead, like he was pretending not to try. When he came in, he saw me at the counter and gave that smug half-smile. Burning the candle at both ends, I lifted my cup. Just making sure the machine doesn't fall apart. While no one's looking. His smile tightened. That was the first crack. Then I went to work on the team. Not directly. Not confrontational. I asked questions. I leaned over to Sarah, our UX specialist, and said, Hey, quick thing. Did we ever finalize the accessibility specs for the onboarding redesign? She frowned. I thought that was being reevaluated? No. It was locked in March. I filed the compliance forms before I left. Oh. Then to Tom, our developer lead. Is the June beta still using the phased rollout I set up? He blinked. Wait, you set that up? Mm-hmm. Back in February. You were out sick that week, remember? We ran the tests after you left. He rubbed his temples. Okay. No one mentioned that. Denise said the schedule was flexible. It's not. We're bound by contract after milestone 3. Clause 6.2. He stared at me like I was a ghost. By the end of the day, 3 different people had come to me quietly, all saying some version of, I didn't realize you'd already handled that. I smiled every time. It's okay. I documented everything. Just ask if you need context. I wasn't reclaiming credit. I was replacing uncertainty with memory, and memories make people question leadership, especially when leadership starts fumbling. The next day, the first real slip came. Denise led the client sync with Travis's team. I stayed out of it, but I listened from the glass meeting room nearby. At one point, I heard her pause. No, we haven't completed the multi-factor prototype yet, she said, but it's on track for next quarter. A beat. Then Travis's voice, cool but pointed. We actually completed that prototype before Rachel went on leave. I have the email summary. Silence. Then some vague murmuring, a redirected conversation. After the call, Denise avoided eye contact for the rest of the day. At 6 p.m., when most people had gone home, I printed the original prototype review and quietly placed it on the shared project board. No comment, no flair, just a reminder. The next phase of my plan? They weren't my enemy, but they were Andrew's mirror, safe, passive, covered in policies like bubble wrap. But HR has one fatal flaw. They hate risk, so I made myself look like one. I requested a private meeting with Janine, our HR director. "Just want to understand where I stand," I said calmly, seated in her gray office with the potted plant that was somehow always dying. I was told there was no formal change to my role, but my title, reports, and scope have all changed. Janine clicked through her screen. "Yes, so there was a temporary reassignment during your leave. I understand that, but it's no longer temporary." She pursed her lips. "And I'm just curious, was that cleared through legal?" "Because per our parental leave policy, role protection applies for up to 12 weeks. Mine was 9. A pause. "The kind that's heavier than a scream." I'd have to check," she said finally. I nodded, polite. "Of course, I'd appreciate any documentation." Then I added, before I stood up, "And just so I'm transparent, I've been keeping track. Not to stir anything, just in case I need to explain it to a lawyer later. You know how it is?" Her eyes shifted. Fast. That was crack number 2. The next few days were interesting. People started looping me into emails again, only a few at first. Then more. I didn't reply to everything, but when I did, I made it count. Insightful. Precise. Never emotional. I made myself impossible to ignore, and Denise noticed. On Thursday, she pinged me. "Can we chat for a second?" I walked into her office. She's didn't look up from her screen. "So, there's been some confusion around communication. People are unsure who to direct questions to." I nodded. "That's natural. Transitions are messy." She blinked. "I'm happy to help clarify things," I added, "but it might help if we had a clear outline of current responsibilities." She sighed. "We're working on it." I tilted my head. I thought the changes were finalized. Another pause. Denise hated being questioned. Always had. She was used to being liked, not challenged. I smiled. "Let me know if I can support the process. I've got a full overview of the previous org chart just in case it's useful." She didn't thank me, she didn't look up, but she knew I was becoming a problem. That weekend, I met with a friend from an old startup job, Zoya, now a product VP at a major SaaS firm. She'd been casually recruiting me for years. We got coffee, caught up. I mentioned what had happened. She leaned back. "So they gutted your authority while you were on leave, handed it to your junior, and hoped you'd just, what? Fade out?" I sipped my latte. "Seems that way." She nodded slowly. "That's risky, especially with your paper trail. I haven't gone public. You should." "Not yet. I'm still shifting the gravity." She smiled, impressed. "You always were dangerous when you were quiet." I left that cafe with an offer in my inbox. Not a job offer, an opportunity. If I wanted to, I could leave. But I wasn't ready. Not until they felt what I felt. Not until they knew what it's like to watch your work be handed to someone who smiles in your face while erasing your name. Not until I showed them what happens when you try to shrink a woman who remembers everything. I didn't need revenge. I needed restoration. But sometimes the only way to restore what's been stolen is to burn the thief's house to the ground, brick by brick, silently, while they're still inside. I didn't start with Andrew. I started with his support system. People follow power, but they stay for trust. And trust was something I had banked for years without realizing how valuable it would become. Take Miriam, for example. Senior data analyst, brilliant, quiet, often overlooked. Andrew had been using her like a calculator, throwing her scraps of ID, metrics for executive presentations, and never crediting her in front of clients. We bumped into each other at the copy machine. "Miriam," I said, "I was looking over the Q2 analysis. Your anomaly tracking for churn rate?" That saved us from losing the Crossbridge contract last year. I hope they're using your model now." She blinked. "I didn't know you remembered that. I remember everything. And I know your model's not being used, because Andrew's version doesn't account for segmented attrition." Her mouth opened a little, then closed, and just like that, a seed was planted. The next day, she forwarded me a dataset. No comment, no request. Just shared access. That was how it began. I wasn't recruiting. I was reminding. Reminding people that I didn't just build this team. I built them. With patience, respect, and precision. And now their loyalty was quietly shifting back. Andrew, meanwhile, had started slipping. Not because he was bad at the job. He wasn't. He was ambitious, smooth, charismatic, but he lacked depth. He operated like someone who had always coasted just enough on confidence and polish. And now that the ground was getting uneven, he was tripping more often than he realized. During our weekly team sync, he presented a progress report. I sat in the back. He walked through user metrics and projections with flair until he got to the growth model. "These numbers reflect the latest retention curves," he said, "adjusted for Q3 expectations." Raised my hand. "Quick question. What cohort assumptions did you use?" He paused. "Oh, same baseline from the Q1 set." A few team members glanced at me. I tilted my head. "Even though the Q1 baseline excluded the onboarding redesign, that would inflate your retention estimate by 8 to 10%. His jaw twitched. I smiled. "I only ask because if Travis sees that discrepancy, he'll call it manipulation." A beat of silence, then he muttered, "I'll recheck the model." He didn't thank me. He didn't look at me, but he looked rattled. Good. That week I stayed late, not for show, for strategy. I poured through shared folders, versions, notes. Found them all, every doc I had created, every plan, every template, repackaged under new headers with Andrew's name or initials, slight tweaks here and there, a change in wording, a different font. But the bones were mine, and bones don't lie. I made copies of everything. I printed a few key examples and stored them in a folder I labeled Echoes. Then I opened my personal notes app, encrypted, off server, and started writing. Not a journal, a memo. The kind of memo that ends careers if read aloud in a courtroom. Every shift in title, every project I'd initiated and someone else had claimed, every private comment that danced dangerously close to discrimination, every date, every name. Not bitter. Not messy, just the truth. Meanwhile, Denise was slipping too. She had started avoiding me in meetings, redirecting questions, glossing over process discussions. But the team was noticing, especially Sarah, who pulled me aside one day. "Is it me?" she whispered. "Or is this whole org chart off?" I didn't answer. I just gave her a small, knowing look. She nodded. "I thought so." The tide was turning, so I made my move. I requested a lunch meeting with Travis. He was the VP of product, 2 levels above me. Charming, political, and terrifyingly sharp. We met at a sushi place near the office. Casual, neutral ground. "I won't take much of your time," I said as we sat down. "I just wanted to thank you." He raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "For giving me the chance to come back into this role. I know things changed while I was on leave, but I'm committed to the success of this team. I care about this product. Deeply." He nodded slowly. "I know you do. And I also know," I continued, "that transitions can create confusion. Titles shift, credit blurs. People step into spaces they weren't in before." A pause. I met his eyes. "But just to be clear, I never left because of performance. I left to give birth to my daughter, and now I'm back, and I intend to operate at the level I did before, or higher." He took a sip of his tea. I see. I'm not asking. For favors, I added. Just awareness. He studied me. Rachel, are you considering legal action? I smiled, calm. Not at the moment. Should I be worried? No, I said softly, but someone else should be. I left that lunch knowing two things. Travis didn't like being blindsided. He hated weak leadership. And right now, both Andrew and Denise were looking weak. The following week, I waited. I let the silence stretch. People came to me more and more, asking questions, looking for clarity, seeking history. Andrew started noticing the shift. At a Wednesday meeting, he interrupted me mid-sentence. I think we should let Sarah finish her point. I stopped, looked at Sarah. She looked at him, then at me, and she said, Actually, I think Rachel's context is important. The air shifted, not loud, not dramatic, just changed. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. But I felt it, the weight of forgotten power settling back into my hands. I never wanted war. I wanted restoration. But they mistook my silence for surrender. They thought a few missed meetings, a forgotten title, and a desk closer to the printer would break me. But I'm not fragile. I'm strategic, and I don't swing. Unless I'm sure the strike will land. It started with a document. Technically, 2 documents, one written by me 8 months before maternity leave, an expansion strategy presentation that outlined product adjustments for older user onboarding, and the other, a nearly identical deck Andrew had submitted as his Q3. Proposal. Same structure. Same feature order. Even the same graph colors. He'd updated a few buzzwords, removed my name, but the foundation, every insight, mine. I had already printed side-by-side comparisons, highlighted overlapping slides, notes with version history, screenshots, metadata, timestamps. But I knew, evidence is nothing without the right audience. So I sent it all to Travis. No email, no explanation, just a digital folder titled Original Work RD. I waited exactly 1 hour. At 1:13 p.m., I got a reply. Let's meet. Tomorrow. Conference room 4A, 10 a.m. Just us. I didn't reply. Didn't need to. That night, I fed my daughter, laid her down, and watched her fall asleep. Then I opened my laptop and read everything I had written in the Echoes folder, quietly sharpening my sword one last time. Not because I doubted Travis, but because I knew Andrew would fight back. And Denise. She'd try to clean her hands before the blood even hit the floor. The next morning, I dressed like I owned the building. Structured navy blazer, soft gold earrings, clean, high ponytail, and heels. Not for them, for me. Because when I wanted to feel 10 feet tall, I didn't wait for a pedestal. At 10 a.m. sharp, I stepped into conference room 4A. Travis was already seated. He gestured to the chair across from him. Rachel, Travis. A pause. He tapped the folder. Is this accurate? Yes. He nodded slowly. You have backups? Original file logs? Yes. Another pause. I've reviewed both versions. Yours is dated 8 months before. Andrew's. Yes. He looked at me. Do you want his job? Silence. I didn't flinch. I want my work, my role, my recognition, my place. And if that displaces him? I didn't hesitate. That's his consequence, not my intention. He leaned back, thoughtful. Then he pulled out another folder. Mine. My HR file. Performance reviews. Peer feedback. Project history. He flipped through it. You know, I never doubted your ability, but I wondered if the fire was still there. It never left, I said. I just had to hold it low so it wouldn't burn my daughter. He gave a short smile. Fair enough. Then, "Come with me." We walked, me in heels, him in silence. Right past the glass wall where Andrew was leading the Thursday sprint review. We didn't stop. We didn't knock. Travis opened the door mid-sentence. Andrew glanced up, annoyed. "Hey, we're just wrapping." "No, you're not," Travis said. The room froze. Travis turned to the team. "Everyone, take 10. They filed out awkwardly, eyes wide, phones half raised. Only Andrew remained. Travis shut the door behind them. Then he pulled out the printed comparison documents, laid them on the table. Andrew's mouth twitched. "Let me explain." "You will," Travis interrupted. "But not to me, to HR. Today. Bring everything. Every version, every draft. If there's a reasonable explanation, we'll hear it." His tone was icy. "Until then," he added, "Rachel will be reassuming her former responsibilities, effective immediately." Andrew paled. "You're siding with her?" "No. I'm siding with facts." Andrew turned to me, face tight. "This is petty. You could have come to me first." "I did," I said quietly. "Remember the donuts?" He looked confused. I turned to Travis. "We're done here," and walked out. No raised voice, no gloating, just precision. By that afternoon, the org chart was changed. Rachel Dwyer, head of product strategy. Andrew, pending HR review. Denise tried to call me that evening. I didn't answer. She followed up with an email, long, formal, insincere. I replied with a single sentence. "Leadership is measured not by how we rise, but by how we handle those returning from the fall." No. Signature. No warmth. Just truth. The next week, I took the corner office again. No one said a word, but Miriam left a sticky note on my desk. It read, "You were never gone. Just underestimated." I kept it in my drawer, and at 5:30 p.m., I shut my laptop, picked up my bag, and drove to daycare to pick up my daughter. I held her close, kissed her cheek, and whispered, "They remembered who I am." She giggled. She didn't understand. But one day, she would. The first Monday in my new office felt strange, not triumphant, not victorious, just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after a storm has passed, and you're not sure if the damage is over or just hidden. The corner office hadn't changed. Same glass desk, same too-firm ergonomic chair, same annoying hum from the HVAC vent above the bookshelf, but the air inside it had changed. Because this time, I wasn't sitting here as someone waiting for approval. I was sitting here because I earned it. And that was a different kind of silence. More solid, less desperate. Still, something in me resisted the celebration. I hadn't won a trophy. I hadn't taken Andrew's job for sport. I'd taken mine back. And then I'd built something new from the rubble. That first week, I didn't move fast. I didn't order sweeping reorgs or retaliate against anyone who had turned their back. That would have made me just another version of them. Instead, I called a series of one-on-one meetings. Quiet, personal, short. I didn't speak about what happened. I asked what they needed, what they'd seen, what tools had been taken from them, what trust needed rebuilding. Some flinched, as if unsure whether to speak freely. Some told the truth too carefully, trying not to name names, but one by one, they loosened. Opened, and I listened. Like really listened, it was Miriam, again, who said it first. "I don't think we needed a new strategy. We needed someone who actually gave a damn." I didn't respond right away, because what was there to say? Sometimes the simplest truth just lands. By the end of that week, the atmosphere in the department had shifted. Subtle, but undeniable. The Slack tone changed. Less clipped, more collaborative. The meeting started ending early, not because we skipped things, but because people started preparing again. People stopped asking, "Will this get me in trouble?" and started asking, "Will this move us forward?" And for the first time in a long while, the team felt like a team again. But outside the office, there were moments where I'd be holding my daughter at home, watching her fall asleep and wonder, was it worth it? All the tension, the stress, the months of being underestimated, dismissed, ignored, the looks, the tone, the pressure to prove I hadn't gone soft. And the truth? Some days it didn't feel worth it at all. Some days I just wanted to go back in time and hold my newborn without worrying if I was falling behind on quarterly metrics. But other days, like the day I walked into the all-hands and saw 3 women from different departments sitting up front, watching me lead, or the day an intern nervously asked if I'd ever felt like motherhood made me less of a leader, and I laughed hard and said, "Motherhood didn't take from me. It revealed me. You just have to survive the first wave of people too small to see it." Those days made everything make sense. I didn't come back to the company to climb. I came back to show up, fully, completely, with my intelligence and my exhaustion, my vision and my sleepless nights. And maybe that made some people uncomfortable. Good. Growth should be uncomfortable. Eventually, HR informed me that Andrew had resigned. The phrasing was clean, corporate, neutral. He wouldn't face formal consequences. No real accountability. And Denise? She took a transfer offer to a different office in Austin. No farewell email, no closure. Just 2 people who had underestimated. The wrong woman walking quietly out of the building they once dominated. I didn't gloat. I didn't even feel vindicated. What I felt was relief and space, like I could finally fill the room I'd always been allowed to enter, but never allowed to fully own. A few weeks later, I received an email from our CEO, short, to the point. "I hear the team's thriving. Proud to have you back in the saddle. Let's talk about what's next." That phrase, "what's next," used to terrify me. Now, it excites me, because for the first time, what's next isn't someone else's decision. It's mine. Maybe I'll stay. Maybe I'll outgrow this place again. Maybe I'll build something of my own from scratch, something designed to never punish women for being human. But wherever I go, whatever I do next, I will never again dim who I am to fit someone else's comfort, and I will never again let silence be misread as consent. The last sticky note I ever received from Miriam said, "You fought quietly, but not weakly. There's power in calm vengeance." She's right, because the best revenge, it doesn't come in flames. It comes in staying and building and rising again. On your terms, every time.